so here we are. We're ready to give you guys a live class, a virtual class. And so we're mixing things up this week. Normally we wouldn't have Eli here in this time, but with everything that's going on, he was able to come up and join us for this session.
There's no stupid questions.
No dumb questions.
Because we'll just filter them out. That's why there's not going to be any dumb questions.
We thought we'd look some at maybe just some arm lock stuff and kind of go deep dive into that. Maybe you can see kind of how our thought process works when we're training together, and kind of go from there. So, good.
Yeah. If there's no questions, we're going to start with arm locks. No, we're good.
Nothing so far.
All right. Let's go.
So let's start. So whenever you're considering an arm lock, there's a few basic main things you'll be looking at to tell if your arm locks are going to be tight or if they're not going to be tight. So a few of those things is you want the person's arm kind of the elbow close to their center line, right? You want to get your hips tight behind their shoulder, and of course you want to have your legs around them. But specifically, see here back, please. Specifically with this bottom leg, I like for this bottom leg to be up and high underneath the arm, right? This is going to help me have for a tight arm lock. Whether we're in the mounted position or if Eli's in my guard, wherever we might be, this bottom leg being high and tight is important and make it difficult for him to rip the arm out. So I wouldn't want to bring my leg over like this and there'd be actually zero space or zero tightness here. It's very easy for Eli to rip the arm out right here. And so that's the case for whichever arm lock it is you're doing, whether it's from guard, from mount, right here, having this kind of high tight in the wedge right here makes for a nice tight arm lock. Also, if I'm doing one from like say side control, it's important that you see I'm high and tight under the armpit right here as I come back to that arm control. Let's see.
So there's like a rule of thumb that you can kind of go by, and so sometimes when we're teaching beginners, we'll say make sure the thumb is in the up direction, which doesn't matter honestly, but it's usually a good indicator that the well of the elbow is in the up position. Because what I'm going to look for on my side of it, if he's applying this, is I want to be able to get rotation of my shoulders and rotation of the arm. Because that's going to take it out of braking, take away the braking potential of it, and it's also going to help facilitate my escape, or the space that's going to help facilitate my escape, right? So like if Jared is here, even if he's started to extend the arm out, if I can still like get rotation out of it this way here, and I can turn my body more in line with his, then it's going to be difficult for him to maintain the control that he needs to be able to go and break it. So he's got to keep this in this neutral kind of position with the well of the arm up in this direction. You notice he's pinching his legs in nice and tight and all the other details that he said, but that's just a couple other little details to keep in mind whenever you're doing this.
You want to make sure that you can feel which way the arm does and does not want to bend. You want to make sure when you're applying pressure that you're going to take the arm away and doesn't want to bend. Okay, so we've got several directions we can go with this, right? We could look at escapes. We could look at ways you can get into the arm lock from different positions. We've got finishing the arm lock, maintaining the arm lock position. Anywhere you guys would like to see us start, or anything you'd like to jump into first?
No, I think some entries, because that's the biggest thing. I think neither one is more important than the other. You can have the greatest entry in the world, but if you can't finish, then it's worthless. You know, on the flip side of it, you can have the greatest finishes in the world, but if you can't get it set up, then it doesn't matter, unless the person just messes up completely and gets you there. So. Let's look at some entries for it. Just so start from mount position, yep. Unless anybody has other things to say.
Can you start with basic?
Yeah, let's go basic.
All right, so we'll go basic first. So basic entry right here. First off, I want to be able to just swing my hips into position. So if his arms are up, I'm gonna go 1, 2, kind of push him down to get that feedback, that push back up. Now I'm gonna step the leg up, kind of point my belly in this direction. I'm going to swing my leg all the way around right here. Boom. I want to be kind of slow and smooth. Notice my foot didn't plant on the ground. It went all the way around. If you're at home and you're wanting to do this as a solo drill, you can get a stack of pillows or whatever, or you might be able to, hoist does it off the ground. So I go 1, 2, I step the leg up, and I swing the other leg around and have a seat. Notice how my hips are deep behind the shoulder, and I'm kind of just a little bit north side or head side of his shoulder line, right, if possible. If I'm going to get back up, I'll bring my leg over, knee down, and back up. So key elements here, I'd like this shoulder to raise up some. So I could encourage that by maybe slapping him a little bit to get the arm to come up or get him to turn this direction. Now, that's going to aid in my ability to get my hips deep behind the shoulder. Now, as I swing my leg around, I want to pull his connection up over the shoulders, right? If it stays back here, he can keep kind of getting up. Yeah, so I'm gonna lead his connection right here up over the shoulder. So now, even if he does push, he pins himself to the ground. So 1, 2, step the leg up, swing the leg around, have a seat right here. From here, I can go into an immediate control. I'll cup inside the bicep right here and bring my elbow to the outside of my hip. If I cross the legs, I like the head side to be on bottom. That makes it difficult for him to push, more difficult to push the leg off and whatnot. So
one of my biggest pet peeves that I see people do is, and this is a serious rookie mistake, but I've seen people that should know better do this too, and it's that they let their butt hit the ground before the leg is covering the head. And if you do that, so like if we go here and I start to swing over and then my butt hits the ground before this leg covers, this is a pretty worthless arm bar. If Jared knows nothing, I might catch it on him. But he's gonna sit right up. Like I'm not gonna get this and beat him on the way up if my butt hits the ground before I have his head covered with a leg. So it's really important that we make that happen.
Sometimes if I'm playing this as a game with the kids, having them go to get my arm, I'll have them, I'll play a little game and say, can you grab my arm and get the leg over the head? And then as they're going to get the leg over the head, I'll just start sitting up with my head. And so that forces them to start putting the head on the head right here to block it in place so they can swing the leg around and still make it happen, right? So if you're doing this at home with kids, turn it into a game, right? Okay, good. If he turns on his side, I'm gonna point the knee up and start sliding the knee behind the head. As I do that, I've got to be able to move my hips and knees freely. So I don't want all the weight to be right here. If he starts turning, now I'm having to walk and it's awkward. So I put the hands on the ground, allowing me to slide the knee behind the head and point the other knee up. Now he's in a good position, so my hand comes through and I go just hand to the shoulder. And again, I'll block on the face or in front of the chin, stopping his head from spinning with the arm lock, right? Then I can just swing the leg around, boom, and we're right here in the armbar setup again.
If you're, whenever you get into this position, let's go. Yep. Whenever you're going, like, make sure that you're not hanging out here very long. Like this is another kind of rookie mistake here, is whenever you start to go for it, is that when you post and then like not distributing the weight or not rearranging the weight. Like if I go here and I just try to get this leg over, but I'm still kind of neutral with my weight, then it's gonna turn into that kind of thing. And so it's getting too much space, it's taking too long, it's too many mistakes to be made right there. So you notice like when Jared's like sliding up into place here, that he is here immediately. He gets there and fills all the space. And then that's gonna allow me too, it's gonna allow whoever's on top to be able to set the weight on the outside of the thigh like that. And that's gonna make this leg here weightless to be able to slide around a lot smoother that way, right?
Check out the angle of his leg as he does that as well. As he slides the knee up, the foot's almost inverting right here, kind of behind my tricep, which makes it hard for me to turn away. Also, his hips slide deeper and deeper behind the shoulder. And so if your knee is too this way, bring the knee down to the ribs, other way. Yeah, right here. Now, when he goes to bring the leg over, it's gonna be hard because he's gonna be hitting my arm, right? He could still put it in position, but if he keeps sliding the hips up deeper, then now he's positioned himself so it's gonna be easy to draft that leg over the face, right, and sit back smoothly. One issue that a lot of people have is, or that we commonly see, is if I'm going to throw the leg over, if my weight's sitting on this back knee, it's pinned by my own weight. So now I feel like I need to hop to get the leg over the head. If that happens, I have to shift the weight either onto the partner or onto my own body in another area so it frees this leg of weight. And so if I'm doing that, I'll go heel toe, kind of invert the knee. Now, I can bring my head out and over until the weight goes onto him and comes off this back leg. And now that it's off the back leg, now I can slowly and smoothly bring the leg around and have a seat that makes it much easier to catch the arm lock right there. So, pretty good. Another one or?
Any questions so far?
Just some questions on punch block, some north-south, just asking about some positions.
You have Mike Davenport asking about maintaining the armbar position.
Okay, so how's it going, Mike? So let's talk about maintaining the arm lock position. So start with this. What are main ways he's going to be able to get out? If the bottom leg's loose, then he can get the elbows to the ground possibly. If I don't have the far side arm contained somehow, then he might be able to make a frame here and get out, or possibly go like this way and come out. Yeah, or that way. So hitchhiker's another. Boom, boom, we move one shoulder over the other. Also pushing this leg off and coming over the top, like with his head. Yeah, that's another option. So there's a bunch of ways that he could get out. And so when I'm maintaining it, I want to keep those in mind. Now, anytime I'm in the arm lock position, I don't just give, I have to be aware that whatever it is I'm doing to maintain it leaves an opportunity for him to escape somewhere else, right? There's no like golden, like you do this and you've got all arm bars. So we want to look at each one of those and kind of diagnose each. So one of the things I'll do, as I cup here, I want to keep this leg up tight behind the arm. So I'll bring my forearm on the outside and slide everything up. Now I like to cross the legs with the head side on bottom right here. I try to get the calf a lot of times as deep behind that shoulder as I can, because it immobilizes his rotation forward and back. And then both his arms are caught up right here, allowing me to peel them free eventually.
I had a question of which way do you prefer to lock their arm? Hook it, key lock, collar grip, or something else?
Hook it, key lock, collar grip, or something else? Meaning for the guy protecting his arm?
How do you prefer to
for
lock up their arm? Yeah.
Yeah. So for me, that just depends on what I'm running into. What would you say?
I typically, it depends on the energy they're trying to use to escape immediately. I will say this, if we can switch gears for just 1 second.
Yep.
It's something that I try if I'm in this position. If I can hit the arm lock without sitting down off of him, then that's, I feel like, superior. Because anytime that like I bail off of the mounted position to finish the arm lock, which is going to have a really high rate of success, but it's also going to sacrifice your position if you do screw it up. So something that we can look to do, if I can get him kind of funneled up into this kind of S-mount position like this, then this is can be a pretty strong riding position as well. And so again, like Jared was saying, I'm way up in the wedge of his armpit. I'm in the wedge of the armpit over here. I'm thinking about my knee and my heel kind of coming together. So I've got the shoulders completely entrapped in this area like that. So it can give me some pretty good stability. It's difficult for him to really, he can't really buck me with his hips because he's out of position for that. And so from here, this is already doing a pretty good job of funneling the arms up into position like that. So this makes it difficult for him. And he feels that since my hips are over here, he feels that this arm is the one that's in danger immediately. So it's in his best interest to do something like this. So he covers the arm that I'm attacking here with the other arm, which anytime the arm that's on top, that's gonna be the one that's like, that I can attack better. So if this is the one that's on top, then I can look to attack this one over here. And so you can look to maybe do like a little Americana on this side. You can look to wrist lock on this side. Whatever it is, if he doesn't want me attacking this one, then he's got to do just the opposite, which is he's got to use that other arm to protect it. So he's got to get that one out to try to protect it somehow. And whenever he does that, now I can sweep back and attack the first arm I wanted in the first place, right? So then when you get in this kind of position, if I can just step over the head, then I can go ahead and get this lock here, or even bring it around in front, and I'll post it in such a way that I don't have to like jump off or fall off to the side with my butt on the floor. Now, if I don't feel like I can get it from here, then I do still have that option to go over here and finish it. So, that's a way that you can kind of throw a lot more like rapid fire attacks from that mounted position before putting all your eggs in the basket of just sweeping to the arm bar.
So go back to control for a second right there, because sometimes if I'm, so one of the questions was, how am I gonna wrap my arms up to keep him from catching the arm lock, right? To keep him as safe as possible. So a couple of options: you could hold the collar or some type of cloth if you have that. You want to make some type of structure that contains this arm that he's trying to rip off. So one of my favorites is right here. I will hand on the bicep and hand between the ear and shoulder. Now as that leg comes over, almost like I'm doing a rear naked choke, I'm going to cut. Now it's contained. Now it's contained by two different structures. See, it's contained by this one and by this one. From here, I bring my elbows over I'll look towards him so I'm not crushing my nose, but I'll bring my elbows over my face as I scoop my body downward to come underneath the elbows. I use my connections to uproot him and keep him on his tailbone. One of the things he needs to be able to execute the arm lock is the heel's heavy, the shoulder's heavy, to keep me contained by his body. He wants a structure around mine that keeps it immobile. And so I want to take that away from him. So I use every point where we're touching, I use those connections to uproot him and get his weight on his tailbone. That makes it hard for him to execute the final submission. Now, from there, I'm gonna circle my hand out. The timing on this is key, because it's like you're threading a needle through a lock. So I'm right here, I swim the hand out, and I go palm away. I go palm away because if I go palm up, then it gives him the arm lock right there. So I go palm away, which makes it harder for him to keep his hips deep behind my shoulder. Now I use this to keep him uprooted. I walk my feet towards him, and then the hole I've created right here, I pull my bottom shoulder away. When I do that, I swing the legs to help facilitate bringing that elbow to the ground, and that gets me out. So there's a
Yeah.
a long drawn out version.
No, but it is good because like he's just essentially created a structure that takes away the key elements I need to finish the thing, right? So
Which is what we do with every counter,
yeah.
right?
The better you understand the attack, the better you're going to understand if you reverse engineer it, how to escape it or how to counter it. And then vice versa too. If your defense is good enough, you're going to start to understand if you have a pretty good analytical mind about how to reverse engineer that defense, you're going to make your offense potentially sharper too. But then the rest is just drilling and repping. So when we get here though, I know what you're thinking, well, so what do I do if the guy's gonna escape like that?
Yeah.
Right, so if you find yourself in this kind of position, then you've already kind of screwed up by letting him get this structure and get this one underneath. If you look at EBI overtime rules and EBI type tournaments or combat jiu-jitsu tournaments, one of the two finishing positions they allow them to start from in overtime is either rear mount or this, they call it spider web. So essentially you're starting with the armbar position, but they allow them to get this kind of configuration to begin with. So then once they start, now the guy has to escape this in the shortest amount of time without getting caught. When we get here, one possible way that I can look to counter this is like Jared was saying, I'm going to hook the arm here. So I've got my south side arm, the one that can touch his legs. I'm hooking and cupping here on the elbow, but I'm putting my elbow down here on the outside of my leg and the wedge of the hip here. So he has his connection set up like this. I know he's going to look to adjust his shoulders, to raise my legs, to make my heels light, all that stuff. So what I need to do here is I need to have my free hand. So I'm cupping with one, I need to have my free hand ready. And so what I want to look to do here is I'm going to hit this. I'm gonna make my, I like what JT Torres said earlier, I was listening, he called it a Lego hand, so I'm gonna start saying that all the time. So I'm gonna take my Lego hand and I'm gonna quickly pull this off faster than he would like me to. And once I do that, I'm gonna hit this. Now, I wanna push this here to try to break the connection if I can, but really the idea is kind of a slingshot, so I'm gonna push this here and then pull it and then get my leg back in place. So now I've done two things. I've gotten my leg back underneath where he doesn't have this escape route anymore, and I'm pulling this and funneling all this inside. So now his arms, this is not a very strong connection for him to be able to use, and so it's gonna be easier now for me to go through and break that connection and finish the arm lock, right?
It's important to note that whenever he's punching the hand down, see, there's a hook right here that's hooking his leg. And that hook gets pretty sticky sometimes. So whenever you punch that wrist into the chest, he's unhooking the leg, right? He's not just moving it up and out, because it's sticking right here. Punch it down and lift the leg up and out, right? And then as you retract. One other thing you can do from right here is, if they're using this type of counter, we're playing a good drill to do is, you can do this with your kids too, is you can put them in this position and don't use your hands and just control them with the legs. And figure out how you have to position your legs to move back and forth and keep them contained in this spot. So we're doing this in class a couple weeks ago, and we did no hands, then one hand, then both hands, right? And so one of the things you can do to help counter this, if you just have one hand it plays, look, my hand comes over and then cups over his wrist right here. So like this. Now, so this hand that snaked through originally, I'm gonna go right at his wrist, and I'm gonna bring my elbow in and kind of straighten the arm, and that punches his hand in deeper to the neck. Now I can pop off, keep it in tight, make the grip, and come back over. You see? So it's another way to counter that counter. So and down the rabbit hole we go.
Or you can just like sit there and hold him with that one hand grip like that and make him feel really stupid.
Yeah, just look him in the eye.
And then if you can punch, you can just hammer fist.
Boom,
Oh,
boom.
yeah, this is awful.
We also have a question here by Danny saying do-si-do question mark.
Yeah, that's what I've been calling that one, because the way I'm hooking the arm on the Americano I did from the top, I've been calling it a do-si-do Americana, because we're kind of, I don't know, I'm from Kentucky, man. You know, it's like, so it's, I think about like square dancing. And, yeah. So, any questions?
I had a question of if the opponent grabs their lapel.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so if, there's a video floating around of a guy showing this defense, and so he takes this arm and he grabs the lapel here, and he said just to make sure they don't attack the other one, reach underneath and grab the other side here. And so he's sitting there talking and demoing it, and like the guy keeps pulling on this one, and so then he like passes out. You know, which it's a farce video. It's a fake video, but it's hilarious, and people thought it was real. Okay, so anyway, what happens if I grab here? He's going like this. So this is a good defense, because what I'm doing whenever I grab is I'm making an anchor point, and it allows me the freedom of this hand to be able to come underneath like this, or to pull down, or to do whatever. So this gives me a little bit of freedom of motion to where I don't have to depend on the wedge of this one to go here. This is a good one for gi or no gi. This one is, I think, in my opinion, this is slightly better because it gives me more range of motion for this one here. So what do you do to counter this?
So here's a couple options you've got right here. So one, I can bring this hand through, and then I'm going, the head side arm goes through the triangle, knuckles, elbow, shoulder, goes through the triangle, and then I'm gonna slide the hand out to the wrist right here. Now the hand's at the wrist, the other hand is gonna come over and make the grip right here. Now I go palm to palm, my elbow drops down, and the other one pulls back and will rip the hand free. And that here is submission.
This one doesn't look like anything. Like when you show it, this doesn't look like anything. In my opinion, this is one of the strongest grip breaks for this particular situation.
It's a very powerful grip break. So that's one option. The head side comes through. I want to make sure I slide down to the wrist because I want to increase the leverage, right, between the knuckles and the elbow. So boom, boom. I make the grip. I'm just going palm to palm. I cup the blade right there, the pad, and then I roll, and it's going to pry his forearm free. Now sometimes they're depending on your body types. If you got stubby arms and they've got stubby arms, no offense. if you're both stubby, then it can be hard to get that body mechanic down. So if that's the case, then you can go the leg side arm, and it can go through the triangle right here. Now what I'm going to use let me use this so you can see. So I'm going to use this other hand to help adjust and get my his elbow on my ribs or belly on this side right here. Now once I've done that, I'm going to keep my forearm at the wrist and come up and grab my collar, or just get a grip right here close to my shoulder, right? And then from there, I'm gonna roll my hip into him and then lay back right here. It has the same effect, right? It's like that figure four type, Americana type pressure, pulling the knuckles this way and taking the elbow this way to pry it free.
And there's also what both of these are doing effectively too, is that it's not making a wrist lock, but it is having that same kind of idea of a wrist lock, because the power of this defense, it comes from my grip strength. So whenever you turn the fist like this, like the grip strength has to eventually fall apart, because just mechanically it doesn't work. Our bodies don't move that way.
A straight wrist makes for a strong grip. A puppet grip makes for a weak grip, right? We wouldn't ever want to do a choke like this, right? We want to turn the palm out and have a straight wrist for a strong grip. So same thing applies right here. Good. Other questions so far? Fantastic. Okay. Anything to add to that one?
No.
All right. So let's move to other options from here.
I had a question of, can you show switching the arm and reattacking the other arm for arm bar?
Sure.
Yeah. it's a cool move, but I don't know. I feel like a lot of times that's superfluous. You know, you don't. I don't know. Yeah, let's look at it. So, but, all right. So we get into this kind of position here. So the idea is that, again, like we were talking about a while ago, if whichever arm is on top is the one that's most vulnerable, and so that's why he's hiding the one I'm attacking underneath, so that the far side arm is on top. So the power of this one here comes from the idea that, like, if has pulling pressure, it's like one of those Chinese finger traps you get at like Chuck E. Cheese or something. But if he has that pulling pressure, it's going to be strong. So me pulling against his grip connection is going to maintain the strength of it. But me pushing the arms together is going to weaken that connection. So that's why that switch, and if this is a switch that I think you're talking about, I think it is. The idea then is I'm going to move myself back across his body here, and so I'm coming up and I'm going to pinch the legs together. So this was the one that was on top. Well, it's still on top, but now I'm on the side that's necessary for me to attack it. So then we circle back over, and now I have access to that arm, right? So that's why that technique works, right?
One note on sharpening this technique up, if you're having trouble getting to the other side, is sometimes it kind of has to do with what we were discussing earlier. As I'm switching from this arm to this arm, so I'll cut the far side arm, I'll take my leg off the top of his head, I'm gonna use my foot and my hand, my palm, to elevate my center, and bring my hips directly over his chest, right here. As I do that, look at how my knee slides from over his head to his shoulder. So I slide back and it cups right here. Now, my hips, I want to make sure his hip stays kind of at his spine and at my spine, right? So that my weight's appropriate, so it's easy to bring this leg up and around, right? So boom, and usually when I'm going for a far side armbar, I like to slide this hand through and start to elevate. So boom, then you can have the seat. And then you've got the head side cross under again, pull the heels in tight, and you've got it tight right here, armbar. So
the most common mistake you're gonna see on that is like Jared was talking about, sliding but being a little too shallow with the leg switch on that side, so that you wind up with your butt squarely on their chest or diaphragm. And so first of all, you're putting too much of your center of your weight on top of them, and so that's going to give them more influence over your balance, but you're also not going to be able to kick that leg over to across the other side to switch the armbar.
I had a question, is it bad to cross legs when doing armbar?
That's going to be my next video. Like that's the next video I want to make, is like it's okay to cross your ankles. Because we were told in the beginning, well, we were told this for 100 years, you know, and it's because it's a good way to teach somebody in the beginning to say, do this, don't do this. If I tell you like 100 different dependent factors about that you can take into consideration when I'm teaching you a move as a beginner, you're going to be confused. It's too much to put in the Rolodex. So you say, don't do this, right? Don't cross your ankles on an armbar. Why do we say that? The biggest reason for the most of the time is that you want to get a squeeze of your hips and your thighs to take out the mobility of the shoulder so that you can attack that hinged joint of the elbow that's adjacent to it. And whenever you cross the ankles, the typical like anatomical thing that happens is that you flare your knees apart. So if you flare your knees apart, then you're taking out the squeeze, right? So if you say, well, okay, don't cross your ankles, instead concentrate on squeezing the legs here, you're gonna tighten up that lock a little bit better, right? So that's one of the main reasons. It's not the only reason.
yeah, so what are the other pros and cons? See, as the, okay, so if I don't cross the ankles, then his out is more through, you know, I don't have a structure that's containing his arms, right? If I do cross the ankles, I do have a structure that's containing his arms. If I don't cross the ankles, then I have more squeezing potential with the arm that's closest to me. And when I do cross the ankles, now I don't have as much of that squeezing potential on the arm, right? But I do have them contained with the legs. So it's not that one's right and one's wrong, right? It's how you're using each. So also, if I cross the legs here, and this crossing can help aid in situating the other parts of the leg inside the V's, right? So here, Eli's feeling, I'm coming deep through the V, deep through the V, deep through the V here, and deep through the V here. And that makes for a really tight catch. When I go here, look, I'm turning my heels out, my toes in. My heel goes deep in the V, my heel goes deep in the V, my butt moves in, my knees pinch together. So I'm still controlling inside the V's, right? So it's not that, it's about how can you move principally sound with both variations, right? It's like you're using same set or different set of principles in different way.
It's also dependent on how this guy here is trying to defend. If I'm trying to defend more of, am I trying to go underneath? Am I trying to go between? Am I trying to push this off? There's lots of different ways I can escape the armbar when I initiate the action. So, you know, I have to like, he has to take that into consideration too. A good place to look at this too, I think, is from the guard actually.
Yeah, let me shoot this real quick right here. So, so let's say, to Eli's point, let's say I plant the heel and I scoot my butt towards his ear to keep his head from scooting out and keep it all tight. Well, this makes a nice little ridge here for him to push up on to start escaping, right? If he's pushing up on the knee and I cup and I go to straighten the leg to make it heavy and keep him from pushing up on the leg, now he's got more of an out between here and the ground that he can start walking his hips this way and scoot the head out. You see? So each thing you do to maintain opens up. The more extreme you get with the maintenance, the more extreme the opposite side, there's an opening somewhere else, right? And so we want to be able to adjust between these different scenarios of crossing and uncrossing to be able to find the context that each one of those applications is going to be most appropriate for. And that's why this drill that I was discussing earlier of hands on the ground and letting the guy try to escape and adjusting your legs to try and keep him contained is so useful, right? So back to guard.
Yeah, what I was going to mention about this, looking at it from the guard perspective, let's say, because this is one of the biggest places that we're taught, don't cross your ankles whenever you're going for this one. So let's say that, however I go to set this up, what we tell people a lot of times is don't cross your ankles here. And the reason for that is, again, that I'm flaring, so it's going to potentially loosen the squeeze here around Jared's arm, and he's going to be able to pull this out and even stack me too. So how's he trying to get this out? So he's going to either pull his arm out or he's going to stack me up a lot of the time, or a combination of both. So which is it more? If I need to make sure that he's not going to pull his arm out, then I need to open my ankles probably, squeeze the knees, and then get a good strong bite here by curling my hamstrings and my calves here, and that's going to keep him from pulling his arm out that way. Now, corollary to that though, what if he's stacking me? This bite isn't necessarily my biggest friend any longer. And so sometimes on the stack, it's actually a good thing for me to cross my ankles, because that's going to create a stronger structure when I flare my knees this way here. And then I actually have a good breaking potential because my hips are the fulcrum right here. So this can work as a frame if the guy tries to stack me sometimes. So sometimes it's beneficial for me to cross my ankles as well.
Another perspective on that is, switching real quick, is they can both be beneficial. They're just, you're kind of using principles in different ways. So if I go to cross my legs, first off, if I go to cross, I need the bottom leg high, like I was discussing prior. But if I cross the legs, I'm gonna pull my heels to my bottom and open the knees, which keeps my hips tight behind the shoulder and takes the spine out of alignment, right? Allowing me to access the arm. Now, okay, so that's one. If I don't cross the legs, then I'll usually pull both heels to the head side to keep my calf deep behind the shoulder and to pull his center perpendicular to his line of base. See, if we look at his arm being captured right here, he's got a triangle base. His knee, and this hand is the base. Now, if he goes to start standing up, his weight is gonna, I've got this arm, so I have the most sweeping potential between his foot and his hand. So I'll use my heels going outward to take him over that wall, which will allow me to access, to face the arm. So that holds true if my legs are crossed. So if my legs are crossed, I still want to be using the connections to move him that direction with that potential, right? But the application is slightly different because my knees are spreading, my heels are coming tight to the bottom instead of everything going north, right? And he feels a big difference on those two. Yeah. But they're both effective. You just got to figure out when and how to use each one.
The biggest thing about any rule like that, whenever you're told something with, like, you got to understand that absolutes typically will always not be absolute. So there's going to be exceptions to almost everything if you understand the rule completely. So there's a quote by Picasso that's really good. It says, "Learn the rules as a novice so that you can break them as a professional." You know. So what else?
Danny over here has another question. Stubborn people who can't seem to break their hands to get the slicer. I'm guessing he means bicep slicers. He means yes or no. What's that?
Say it one more time.
He's talking about if stubborn people who can't break their hands, you go for bicep slicers on them.
Yeah.
That like a guaranteed always, or?
Yeah. The bicep slicer, as far as the submission goes from here, is fairly difficult. No, I don't want to say that. You can catch people with it all the time. It doesn't matter. Whatever kind of connection it is, I'm pulling here. So the idea of how we're going to go for the bicep slicer, I think it's better used as a grip break. And so what I mean by that is, like, whether I have the north side or south side arm inside here, then I'm going to pick up my leg and put it on top of the connection of his hands here this way. And so what's happening is it's sandwiching my wrist here, the narrow of my wrist, deep into the wedge of his elbow. So it's going to be very painful on his forearm and on his bicep. And then whenever there's maximum pressure, I'm going to also rotate so that it goes from flat to wide, and that's going to be extremely painful on Jared's arm, right? So watch the face he makes. No. So we go here like this. So, but I think the way it's best used, in my opinion, is I'm going to cross this leg here on top of it too to add the pressure, but I want to continue to pull and allow him to break that grip to relieve the pressure, rather than me trying to maintain it and get it. But if you just want to be that kind of person that you don't want him to let go, then you can go either north side or south side to finish this lock. And so I'll try to be nice about it, but we go here, and if I figure 4, it's gonna be better if it's this leg, I'm gonna go here to figure 4, and then I wanna hook, you're gonna have to imagine, sorry.
It's all good.
Yeah, I'm gonna figure 4 on top like this, and then hook this under Jared's head this way, with my wrist still inside, so that's gonna be nasty pressure. And you can definitely cause some damage too.
Yeah, my elbow will literally explode in his face.
Yeah, it'll be disgusting. Yeah. Well, you know, speaking of which, though, I think it's always interesting to talk about like what happens whenever things are taken to full fruition on submission, so that you'll see the damage that takes place. On a bicep slicer, one of the most common injuries is to break the radius or the ulna of the forearm, because those are smaller bones and there's less muscle mass around it, and so that pressure has to go somewhere, and it typically will go here rather than actually like snap the humerus, which it can, and it can like separate and tear some elbow stuff too. But that's one of the most common ones. The most common injury I've ever seen from bicep slicers is the break in the forearm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hope that answered that.
Yeah. Another way to get that is if you're on side control bottom, just
Yeah.
I'm just brainstorming right now, but if the leg's up and I drape the arm over right here.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
I remember like Brian Curtis was really good.
Yeah.
So he'd go here, like sometimes on a guard pass, if you can keep this one pulled in like nice and tight here, and then drop here. So I'm gonna put this almost like I'm giving him the potential for a toe hold, but I'm gonna figure 4 here like this, and this arm's gonna go underneath the wedge of his armpit here, and then I'm gonna reach both arms to pull down on the shoulder and the tricep, and then squeeze that way. That's real nasty because it's my shin bone now going straight into the bicep. So that's a really painful one.
For sure.
I
Yeah.
had a question of if they're doing the Hitchhiker Escape, how to stop that.
So one of the keys to the Hitchhiker Escape, so what is the Hitchhiker Escape? It's he goes to turn the palm up, he walks all the way around, and he comes out this way, right? Okay, so just like he's hitchhiking. So one of the keys that makes the Hitchhiker Escape work is that this shoulder is able to come over the bottom shoulder. That's also what keeps you from getting your face smashed if you're rolling out of the Hitchhiker. Let me do it here. So as I'm walking around, I don't want to just bring my hips over my shoulders right here, because now my face starts to get smashed right here. Rather, I bring one shoulder directly over the other shoulder, and it allows me the freedom to come out. And I want to keep laying on this leg, so I'm pivoting, and then come up whichever direction.
He's killing that leg so that he doesn't wind up in a triangle or omoplata
Yeah.
whenever he hitchhikes out.
So with that being said, one of the key things I need to do is I need to isolate the rotation of this arm and shoulder so he can't spiral it this way. It's almost like he's trying to screw a light bulb in over his head right here. So I want to reverse that. Now I can do that a couple of ways. I can control the elbow and then monitor the wrist, or I can do both hands on the wrist and roll it back and out, right? But the key is I keep the palm almost facing south, or rotating the arm this direction towards top side towards his feet. And as long as I'm rolling that direction, then it makes it difficult for him to get this shoulder over the other shoulder. And then I can stay here and finish executing the arm roll. Fit out of that?
No, just twist the wrist like Jared said.
Yeah. Don't get it twisted.
Yeah.
All right, you get twisted.
Dude, yeah.
All right,
else,
other
guys?
questions?
How about like when it gets deeper into the Hitchhiker Escape, they're not able to keep that twisted?
Yeah, so then you would be transitioning into the triangles and omoplatas and all that stuff, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's like anything else. You gotta know when to hold them and know when to fold them. Shout out to Kenny Rogers, who passed this week.
Oh,
Rest
no, I
in
knew
peace. Yeah, 2 days ago. Yeah. We're dedicating this live stream to Kenny Rogers. Memory.
So when he starts turning, so boom, boom. So one of the things I would like, if at all possible, to get this leg free, right? Now, as he starts coming up, I can start coming around and working into an omoplata setup. If he starts to sit up off of that, then that's where my triangle is going to start popping up right here, okay?
Literally going out of the frying pan into the fire.
Yeah. So, but if he's got a good Hitchhiker's Escape, that's hard. It's hard to pull off.
It's like everything. It's timing, you know. So, what else?
Is there another escape from armbar that you can show?
Oh yeah.
There's lots, yeah. We actually made a video together that's on my channel of just all armbar escapes.
Mm-hmm.
So you can go back and check that out later too, in addition to these. But yeah, we can talk about lots of them. You want to show?
Yep. So, all right. So let's talk about if the legs are crossed. Basically, this is one of my better options because this arm is contained by the crossing, so it's hard to get my arm free. Now, if the legs are not crossed and his heels are more on the ground, yes. In this case, I'm going to try and get my outside elbows to the ground. So I'm going to do an S grip. So my fingers go tip to tip, and then I roll up into an S grip right here. So boom, and then I roll up into an S grip. And notice the outside arm is the one that's palmed down because I want that structure on top containing the other arm. If I do it this way, it's easier for him to peel that free. So I'm right here. Now I'm going to let my elbows drift away from each other and kind of open my chest and bring my knuckles to my belly right here. Now, as I do that, I'm going to bring my elbow, my outside elbow, to the ground, and now I'm going to look away from him and walk my head kind of towards his butt and my heels the opposite direction. Now, the idea here is to get his heel up onto my forearm right here. So I'm just going to kind of bridge right here to get the heel on my forearm, and now that I'm here, I'm going to let it to rest, the heel right there on the space between my elbow and my wrist. Now both my heels will come up like this, and my leg goes just outside my tricep, and then I turn back towards him to get both my legs over his knees. From here, I'm going to cross the ankles and then go to straighten. As I straighten, that makes a hole. I want to keep this hand right here between the knee and hip, because if I let it go completely, he can hop into a knee bar or something. Yeah, right here. I don't want that. So I keep this. That stops him from hitting the knee bar. Now I get this arm free, and now we're in a bit of a scramble right there. So, but it gets you free from the arm, right? Say it again. So right here, I make the S grip to the chest. Elbow comes in. I raise the hip to bring it right over my forearm. Bring the legs up. Turn towards Eli. Cross the legs and straighten. Keep the hand on the inside. Put the elbow to the ground. Now we're up into whatever you want to do from right here. Okay. Get another one.
Maybe look at one from the guard.
Right. Yeah. So from the guard, one of the key things, for any arm lock is it's just a good kind of fundamental thing about the arm lock. You want to, if you're executing the arm lock, you want to feel the weight of his arm, right? So what does that mean? Like if I'm in Eli's guard and he feels this, it's a good time for him to go for the arm lock because he's got my weight, right? My weight's on the arm, which means the arm's pinned in position by my own weight. If I'm mounted on top, real quick, I would like to feel him push on me some. So whatever I'm doing, let's say your arm's in more, whatever I'm doing to get that push back, whenever I get that push back on me, push up with your forearm, right there, I can feel that push. That push lets me know that the arm's stuck there for the time being, so I can swing into position. So I look for the connection, the weight distribution to help determine when it is that I can go for the arm lock. So in turn, from my position, I don't want to give him that, right? So if I'm sitting in the guard, I want to position myself so that it's going to be hard for him to get my weight from my hands. So one of the things I can do is, if you imagine your hips are like a bucket, imagine you're pouring water out the front of the bucket. So I'm going to tilt my belly button forward and my chest open. So now if he goes to pull his knees forward, keep the legs crossed, it'll be hard for him to uproot me. He ends up pulling himself towards me, right? Which is different from if I have my back rounded like this, I'm pushing. Now as he pulls forward, it pins my hands to his, giving him my weight, right? So rather, I'm going to open the chest and push the belly forward. Now as he draws the legs up and forward, I counter it just with my positioning. This allows the hand to float. So now if he's sitting up into me, I can use my hand to just check the neck, right there, right? And just kind of let those hands hover. So now, next element. So there's a lead shoulder and a rear shoulder, typically speaking. If I'm here and this shoulder's closer to his chin, that's what he's going to be wanting to attack. If he tries to attack this arm, it's going to be very difficult. So don't attack the far side arm, right? Use proximity usually to indicate what it is that we should be or should not be attacking, whichever is closer to the center of mass. And so since this arm is closer to the center of mass, that's when he's going to be attacking. That's what I want to keep light. So now my rear arm, it goes kind of palm on the hip, the other hand just kind of floats. Now, as it floats, I think about where does he need to be, right? We said in the beginning, he needs my arm close to my spine. He needs his hips behind the shoulder and the legs over the head, right? So I don't want my elbow dropping into my spine because that's going to allow him to hop up and catch the arm lock. Rather, my palm goes out, my elbow stays out. Now it also stays light. So now even if he grabs with whatever, if he goes to spin for any type of arm lock, there's just nothing there. It's just hollow space. So that's like your first line of defense, right? Preventative. Okay, so let's talk about if he starts to get into it. So as he goes to get into it, I'm gonna, one hand will go on the bicep, and the other hand will come up like we saw from the mount, right? Now from here, I'm gonna cup. I'll open this, the knee that you can't see. Boom. And I'll bring his knees to the ground, which puts his body almost in like an L position. And I go palm towards me, and then I can start to step the leg up over the hip usually, and then rip the arm out and start coming from here. I want to make sure I keep control between the knee and the hip, because if he starts getting the knee in here, I've got a battle. If I can stay here now as he draws the leg up, I go with it and able to hit the back. Good. Can you add that one? Questions?
Got a question. Can you show the easiest way to get to pit stop position so we can get the armbar relatively easier?
Pit stop
Pit stop.
position.
Not
I keep getting questions lately like that. I don't understand like the because like for terminology you have to understand varies from like almost from school to school. I mean, even within like the same association a lot of times, then it still is a little different. I think maybe so the whole question was easiest way to get to pit stop position for what?
For the armbar, so getting the armbar relatively easy.
I think probably you're talking about like that, the armbar setup like off to the side, like once we've gotten like the spider web.
Yeah.
Here.
From closed guard.
Okay, well that changes it.
Yeah. I'm not sure what that terminology is.
Yeah, I'm not sure what pit stop is.
Yeah. So
I think maybe
So
maybe pit stop is maybe here.
So I was wondering.
Is this maybe this is it. One thing I would say off of this is don't try to make it too many steps because like a lot of times when we're teaching beginners,
He
it's
said
kinda-
yes.
Yeah.
He said
Okay.
yes.
All right. Great. Thank you. So a lot of times when we're teaching beginners, it's like, okay, well let's adjust the arm over here, and then I'm gonna get this, then I'm gonna go here, then I'm gonna squeeze, then I'm gonna bite, then I'm gonna turn, then I'm gonna do this. That's fine, but you want to edit. You want to whittle away after all those like different steps, so that you start to understand how to like move seamlessly into like kind of one connection point. So one big thing that I want to think about is similar to how you're going to do the triangle too. Like Jared was mentioning earlier on, you want this trailing leg is one of the most overlooked things about this position, because people a lot of times they see the arm here and they'll just throw this over and it's this sloppy sideways arm bar and he's just going to pull that right out. So what I need to make sure is that my rotation is something where, like again, like Jared mentioned, you want to get the weight on top of you, and I want this trailing leg to go nice and deep up into the wedge of the armpit. So I think like knee pit to armpit, because it sounds nice, it's actually more hamstring. But then the inside of my knee here, this little round bone part is going to go kind of on top of his shoulder, and then you can kind of make this capture right here. And so this one here, because this is where I want the tightest space, this leg's going to go on bottom, and I'm going to curl in with my legs like that. And so now I've got this like right directly in front of me, and so I'm pulling him in. And so then from here, it's just a matter of clearing his head, making sure I maintain the tightness with the hip connection and everything to be able to come around and then finish the armbar that way.
So how do we use the connections to get that commitment from him, right? Because part of what I think you're describing here is this as well. As I bring the legs up, it's the. See, so as I bring the legs up, say we're going from here to a pit stop hot position, using that terminology. I come over the shoulder and bite, but this pressure is almost this way because it's making me want to put his weight on this arm. Now, the more his weight's on this arm, it allows me to spin into position and make the bite. Now, okay, for this kind of capture right here, I want my hips to come in almost this way. So a lot of times I'll use this from if he's over, and I'll do like a 1-2 right here. I'll get like a grip on the far side shoulder, which helps nullify the strikes from this side as well. If you pull that arm back, it's kind of nullified. So now from here I can bring both legs up, and now they're up, my forearm holds his chin in position, and then my hip is gonna come in at this angle right here on the tricep, pinning his elbow to the spine. Now when I cross the leg over the shoulder, it's like I'm trying to get his shoulder like through this space right here. And now I'm pulling my heels tight to the bottom to keep the arm crossed, pinned tight to his spine. Then you've got this arm lock, or from here we start walking around into the other arm lock. Again, that bottom leg's super high. But I'm using the connections essentially as my legs come up. It's almost like I'm pushing away and then pulling both my heels over my head kind of at the same time to draw his weight into that arm to keep it pinned, so I can then, it increases the window of opportunity you have to position your body and apply the structure you need to advance with that submission. right?
Yeah, there's a couple of things that, like, if you read in between the lines of I think what both of us are saying, that there are a couple of common mistakes that kind of rookie mistakes is pushing the person away more than it is pulling the person in to the armbar. Because a lot of times you'll see, like, whenever they're trying to extend the hips or they're trying to get what they feel like is a stronger connection, it's actually them extending and pushing the person away and helping them to escape.
Yeah, what he's saying there too, I don't want you to confuse him. What he's saying is pulling with these connections, like, because the rookie mistake with the pull is that they'll grab the arm and
Yeah, not that.
right? And so I'm not grabbing the arm and pulling necessarily. I'm using my other connections to set up so the weight's on the arm and it's pinned, right? So the pull comes from all my other connections. Is that
Yeah, absolutely.
accurate?
Yeah, I mean, everything in jiu-jitsu, like energetically, higher level jiu-jitsu is about manipulation. That's what it's essentially about. It's about manipulation. It's not about force. When you're forcing something, that's not really jiu-jitsu anymore. It's not the essence of it. You just need to be bigger and stronger to force something to happen on somebody smaller and weaker. So it's not really a pursuit that's like worth the majority of your time, pursuing, because you're only gonna get so big and so strong.
Unless you're into that.
Yeah. I mean, hey, now don't get me wrong. Like, you should always be the bigger, stronger, faster person. And so, that with good jiu-jitsu. So the good jiu-jitsu is going to be more technical. It's going to be about manipulating the person into the position you want them to be. Right? What else, guys?
I had a question of, can you guys show what to do when a person in guard drives into you and just stack you to make you tired? And in parentheses, white belt opponents.
Okay, good. So, so like they're just trying to like heavy stack, right? One of the biggest things that they have to sacrifice whenever they go to stack you like that is unless their alignment is really good whenever they're stacking. Now, Jared will stack me out of an armbar like all day long, and it's frustrating because he's not in the spaces I feel like he needs to be in, but he still does it and makes it work somehow. So he's gonna pretend to be a white belt for right now though. So we get here, and Jared kind of mentioned this a while ago. So it's like I have this armbar started somehow, right, on him. So the big thing here is like, yeah, see that kickstand now. So that kickstand really gives him good base that direction, right? So it also gives him good force if he wants to stack me by going this way because he's in line with my spine now. So as long as he stays in line with my spine and I keep my center directly underneath him, he can fold me up pretty good, and I just have only my lower back and my legs, the strength of those, to keep him from stacking me. So the biggest thing that I need to do is get him out of alignment to where he's not strong any longer. So right now, if my tailbone is in line with that leg, then he's gonna stay strong, he's gonna stay forceful. But if I shift that though, like Jared was talking about, taking my heels this way here, like, look now, he's pulled off of his center. And now this hand over here can help by blocking this leg and to make sure that he doesn't follow me too much. And then he's gonna get swept over. So that's one of the best things that you can really look to do, in my opinion, to stop somebody from stacking you up, is to sweep them based on the energy they're using to stack you.
You can also use that head that went under the leg. You can also go in the hip as well. So let me land here. So again, I'm gonna highlight essentially principle 3, the triangle base. So if you look at that, foot's posted, the knee's on the ground, and then he's driving into you. So it's like I'm a pillar of support, the foot's a pillar of support, and the knee's a pillar of support. So I want to look at how his center is in relation to those 3 pillars, right? And I want his center to be closest to the wall between me and the back foot. And then I'm going to use my connections to topple his center over that wall. Because if I just push back, I just push back into his pillar of support, and then he's going to crush me. So what I want to do is I use my heels pulling him perpendicular to that wall, the wall between myself and that back foot. And then I'll use my grip, come on here, just I use this hand right here, boom, or I can also inside the leg, and I'll use that as an uprooting force. So this is rolling over, and this is uprooting. Those two together will topple him over. And that's the most precise application of energy with the least amount of force you can use to topple over. Now, if he's staying centered, I'm gonna go back and show the first video we showed.
Yeah.
And this is purple belts in like 2008.
Yeah, this is the first video that we ever made together that I uploaded. First video ever uploaded to my YouTube channel. It's still on there from 2006.
Yeah.
Or 7.
Yeah.
A long time. It's when YouTube just became YouTube.
So I'm in the arm lock position, but now he's too centered for me to be able to topple him over that wall, right? So if that's the case, this hand's gonna swim through and go right here on my leg. So it's gonna swim through the arm and go right here on my leg. The other hand's gonna swim through to his hip, right here. So, right here, my hand comes through, the other hand swims through. Now, I'm gonna turn right here and go all the way underneath him, like this, till he falls down. Now look, my hand is gonna cup the far side leg and go around the world. Boom, and we end up right here. It's called a full turn arm lock. So, super fun. We actually used to use that a whole lot.
Yeah, yeah. I still do, but more from turtle these days than anything. But yeah, it is like we used to call it a full turn arm lock or a 360 arm lock, and now they call it a swim move for the most part.